Good afternoon. I'm Christina Burke, Curator of Native American Art at Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa, Oklahoma, within the boundaries of Muskogee Creek Nation. Thank you so much for joining us today for a virtual tour of the traveling exhibition, Hearts of Our People, Native Women Artists, which will open to the public tomorrow, October 7th, and be up through January 3rd of 2021. I want to tell you a little bit about this exhibition and this unique project before we go into the gallery to look at some of the works of art. One of the things about this exhibition is that it has been a collaborative project from the very beginning. The co-curators, Jill Alberg-Yo at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, or MIA, and Terry Greaves, an artist, community scholar, and member of the Kiowa Nation, worked together to put together a 21-woman advisory board from various Native communities throughout the US and Canada, artists, curators, scholars, and others, who came together to start working on this exhibition in November of 2015. Working together since that time, we chose artwork for the checklist, we organized the exhibition in terms of themes, legacy, relationships, and power, wrote for the catalog, did research, talked with community members, planned programming, etc., etc. One of the other special and important aspects of this exhibition is centering Indigenous voices throughout. So not only was it a collaborative project from the beginning, but you'll see and hear Native voices of the artists, the advisory board members on videos. There are poems and literary texts that are an integral part of this exhibition. Many of the object labels have been translated into Indigenous languages of the community of origin of the objects that they relate to. There's also an audio guide with additional interpretation and Native voices, so you can hear more about specific objects in this exhibition. All in all, a special show that we're really honored to be able to present here at Philbrook within the Muskogee Creek Nation. So why don't we step inside the gallery and look at some of the art. As I mentioned, the exhibition is organized into 3 themes or thematic sections: legacy, relationships, and power. The legacy section really looks at artwork and thinking about the knowledge of how to create this work and how it's passed down through the generations. So one great example of that legacy is this beaded outfit by 3 generations of the Growing Thunder family from Montana. So Joyce, Juanita, and Jessa Ray worked together to create this incredible outfit: a beaded dress, leggings, moccasins, a blanket with a blanket strip, purse, accoutrements that any traditional Northern Plains lady would have, not just of the past, but of the present. This piece is actually in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, who generously lent it to this traveling exhibition. And it's installed in our first gallery, Legacy, again, as kind of an icon to that theme of legacy through the generations, of the knowledge of particular artwork, designs, techniques that are passed down from generation to generation. So it's a collaboration and thinking about the past and how those artistic legacies are expressed in the present. As we move through the gallery, I also want to comment on a contemporary piece, a painting by Diani Whitehawk, who's Rosebud Lakota, living in the Twin Cities area. This particular piece pays homage to the legacy of Quillwork, that is a traditional art form among many Native people, including on the Northern Plains. It is not quillwork, it's created with layers and layers of paint, very carefully and patiently applied to that canvas. And from far away, it might look, it is an abstract design and might look deceptively simple. But as you move closer, you see the incredible attention to detail that the artist took in putting on layers and layers of paint. Not just one color or 2, but I think there are 5 or 6 in total including a layer of gold paint and thinking about the value of traditional materials like Quillwork that was very time consuming to process and to incorporate to embellish things like clothing, moccasins, etc. So by organizing this exhibition thematically, it allowed the co-curators and the advisory board to juxtapose historical objects from the past with very contemporary works and to speak to different issues and traditions that continue to this day. Let's move on to the relationship section. Like all of these themes, they are very broadly construed. And again, this has allowed the co-curators and the advisory board and the organizing curators at each of the venues to take some license in terms of how to organize the exhibition, what objects go next to what. In the relationships section, all of this artwork speaks to different kinds of relationships, from human relationships, family, kin, tribal relationships, so among human beings, but also those relationships between human beings and what we think of as the natural world and the spirit world. One of the really exciting and dynamic pieces in this section that I think really draws a lot of visitors in is this epic painting by Christy Belcourt, First Nations artist from Canada. At first glance, it might look like beadwork, and it certainly was inspired by historical beadwork from her community and region, Great Lakes region. Bright, vibrant colors, but here they're rendered in tiny, precise dots of paint that represent those glass beads that we see beaded onto other kinds of objects. But as you can see, this is not a small, minor piece. This is a huge painting, incredibly intricate, painstakingly created, and all of those species of plants, of birds, of insects, of animals, in this intertwining network of life, in these vibrant colors. All of those species are either extinct or endangered in Canada. And the artist is speaking about the fragility of the natural world in which we live and the implications of what it means for us humans when species go extinct and what kind of impact we could have on those species as well. So she's even included the root systems of many of the plants. And again, thinking about all of those aspects of life, the interconnectedness of the plants, flowers, insects, birds. It really is an incredibly vibrant piece, a beautiful piece, but also a powerful piece with lessons for us to learn. So as we move through the relationship section, and speaking of beadwork, one of the other pieces I love to talk about is this beaded valise by Nellie Two-Bear Gates, who was a Lakota from the Standing Rock Reservation. And even during her lifetime, she was well recognized in her community and outside her community as a master artist. This particular piece shows an image of a giveaway. So a gathering of people with some sort of honoring, perhaps a wedding in this case. We see a teepee in the background, in front of which are wool blankets with beaded strips, tan deer hide robes decorated with quill and beadwork. And around the edge of the valise, we see all of these horse heads. Those horses and the other fine gifts in front of the teepee would be gathered together by the family who was hosting the giveaway to be given to their esteemed high-status guests who were coming to observe the wedding or whatever sort of ceremony and doing is taking place. You also see right in the middle there is a stand with a number of pails, probably of food, of soup, that the host family has prepared to feed their guests. And as is traditional among many Native communities, and particularly on the Northern Plains, when you're hosting a giveaway like this, You make enough food to feed your guests to have a meal when they're in camp, but also an entire meal when they go back to their own homes as well. So if you invite 150 people to your giveaway, you have to prepare food for 300 people. So each of those guests can have a meal at the giveaway and then to take home with them as well. No small task, any day or age. As we continue to walk through the relationship section, we see artwork that again speaks to the relationship among human beings and, for instance, birds of the sky world, and even of deep space, as well as to the earth itself. This installation is by Nora Naranjo Morse of Santa Clara Pueblo, northern New Mexico. It's called Our Homes, Ourselves. And she's speaking about that deep and complex and rich relationship of Pueblo people to the earth, to the mud with which they make the adobe bricks for their homes to protect their families. That same clay, that mud, that Mother Earth, can also be used to create artwork, to create utilitarian vessels that will be used in Pueblo communities, that might be sold or traded to others, and even clay to make very contemporary installations like this piece, which is in the collection of the Minneapolis Institute of Art and is on tour with Hearts of Our People exhibition. I should note that Hearts of Our People, I've mentioned that it's a traveling exhibition. It opened at the Minneapolis Institute of Art in June of 2019, so a little over a year ago. It traveled to the Frisk Museum in Nashville, Tennessee, and then to the Renwick Gallery, part of the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And it was there and open for a few weeks before the shutdown. Unfortunately, the Renwick wasn't able to open it for longer than that. Originally, the show was planned to be here at Philbrook this summer, opening in June and closing in September. But because of COVID, we had to change plans. It was not easy, but I'm really grateful for all the hard work behind the scenes to still be able to bring this important exhibition to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to share with our community. So the final subsection of the relationships segment is talking about our relationship with the water. And there are both historical and contemporary pieces that relate to those ongoing relationships. One that I just love to look at is this piece by D.Y. Begay, who is a master weaver. So she is known for doing very complex and elegant landscapes of the Southwest, where she makes her home. She and her sisters are all weavers. D.Y. keeps the sheep. The sisters gather throughout the year to shear the sheep, process their wool, create their own dyes and dye wool, and then each of the sisters creates their own artwork. This particular piece is not of a Southwestern landscape, as you could probably tell. It was commissioned by the Minneapolis Institute of Art of a Minnesota landscape, so a piece that would speak and relate to their community in the Twin Cities area. And so the artist, D.Y. Begay, traveled throughout Minnesota, took photographs, and then created this incredible detailed piece of a Minnesota landscape for the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. And again, thinking about those relationships of humans to their environment, to the air, the land, and the water. In the last section of the exhibition, it's called Powing. And here we're looking at artwork that speaks to all kinds of power: economic, diplomatic, personal, artistic. One of the central pieces of this section is this incredible black-on-black pot by Maria and Julian Martinez of San Ildefonso Pueblo. This particular piece is part of the Philbrook collection and has traveled with the exhibition since its inception, since the beginning in Minneapolis. This kind of black-on-black surface treatment was made famous by Maria and Julian in the early 20th century, and is also the inspiration for another work of art in this exhibition, a customized 1985 Chevy El Camino made by artist Rose B. Simpson from Santa Clara Pueblo in New Mexico. That car is also called Maria because the artist Rose Simpson has customized the paint on the outside to this black on black paint to emulate the Maria Martinez finish process technique, and even the inside interior of the car with black leather and suede to get that juxtaposition of the very shiny surface with the matte finish as well. So you can see work like this both inside the gallery and actually installed outside in our gardens, and more on that in a minute.
So I want words to undrink the drugs we loved into our veins, because for some of us, this was the only way we knew how to keep breathing.
And as we walk through the power section, you will have heard one of the poems that is part of the show that is installed here in the gallery. As I mentioned, Native voices have been centered in this project from the very beginning, not only in terms of the co-curator, Terry Greaves, and this 21-woman advisory board, most of whom were Native, but also in the inclusion of poems, literary texts throughout the exhibition. In most of the other venues, those poems and literary texts were installed in the gallery itself. Philbrook's gallery is a little bit smaller than some of the other museums. And with the logistics of COVID and the need to social distance and keep each other safe, we've actually installed a poetry walk in Philbrook's garden. We're lucky here at the museum to have 25 acres of gardens and grounds, and so we've installed several aspects of this exhibition in our gardens. That includes the car, Maria, that I just mentioned, which was, if you look around, it was too big to fit in our gallery. And so we've installed that in the garden. It has its own special display case, technically a shipping container, but we call it a display case. That particular display case has been customized for its presentation here at Philbrook with a mural that we commissioned from local artist Jessica Rosemary Harjo, painted a mural on the outside. So part of the presentation here in Philbrook is not just the artwork in the gallery, organized thematically, but is also in our gardens with the Car Maria, the mural by Jessica Harjo, the poetry walk that I mentioned, which has 8 poems and literary texts, some of which are just texts and some of which have audio components as well. In addition, we commissioned Osage artist Addie Roanhorse to create a grass maze for Philbrook, the first time we've ever done that. And so that grass is growing up now. You can see the abstract floral design that she created for us. In addition, we partnered with the Intertribal Agricultural Council and the Pawnee Nation Seed Preservation Project, who very generously donated heirloom seeds for our horticulture staff to plant in our Victory Garden. So part of that actually all of the harvest later this season of those organic vegetables will be donated to the Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma, as always, and we're grateful for that partnership and their generous donation. As we walk through the rest of the power section, one of the pieces, or really I should say 2 of the pieces, that people always comment on is this pair of shoes, custom beaded Christian Louboutin shoes with beadwork, quillwork, all kinds of materials and techniques that we often associate with historical Native art. But here, in a very contemporary design by Jamie Okuma. The bright colors of both the glass beads, of the quill work, of the eagle fluffs that have been dyed. These are not your typical beaded moccasins. This is definitely contemporary and definitely one of a kind. I can't tell you how long it took for the artist to create these shoes. That's the kind of question that many artists really don't appreciate when people ask them that. One of the artists in the show, a pomo basket weaver named Susan Billy, says in a video that when people ask her, how long did this basket take for you to make? Her answer now is 1,000 years. And in part she says that because she comes from a family of basket weavers. Her grandmother, Susie Santiago Billy, was also a basket weaver. One of her pieces from the Philbrook collection is in this show as well. And so thinking about that artistic legacy that's handed down through the generations, that years of knowledge of when to gather, how to process those materials, how to construct a basket, how to tan a hide, how to weave a robe. All of that takes time and is knowledge that's handed down from in families and from mentor to apprentice. And so, as I mentioned, Susan Billy's answer to how long did it take for you to make that is 1,000 years, because that's how much knowledge and wisdom is passed down for her to create a contemporary piece today. So as you look around, as we walk through these galleries, through these sections of legacy, relationships, power, you see historical objects which perhaps are expected, and some very contemporary works which may be unexpected. One of the last pieces in Philbrook's installation is this clip of prima ballerina Maria Tallchief, who was a citizen of the Osage Nation, dancing in a ballet called The Firebird, which was written specifically for her by George Balanchine. And again, from the beginning, the co-curators and advisory board wanted to make sure to have as diverse as possible an array of arts, from the expected basketry, pottery, beadwork, clothing, to the unexpected, photography, installation, video, and even ballet. So thinking about the wide range of creativity, of innovation, of legacy, of traditions that we see throughout this exhibition. Some of it is, as I said, expected, some quite surprising, all of it beautiful and powerful. We thank you so much for joining us today on this virtual tour. Clearly there's a lot more to see and do in this exhibition and in the parts of the exhibition that we've installed in the gardens. We also have a whole slate of programs, activities, and events in association with this exhibition, which, as I mentioned, is up through January 3rd of 2021. Thanks so much for joining us. Come on out and see us. Make sure that you wear your mask and follow our policy and guidelines. We want to keep you and your community safe as you come to enjoy this incredible traveling show. Thank you.